Let me bring in MSNBC military analyst, retired Colonel Jack Jacobs. Jack, this was the question. What would Iran consider to retaliate for the massive attack that was launched by and unprecedented attack launched by the U.S.? Again, we're getting this from Iranian state TV, but we have three new pieces of information that I want to get your reaction to. One is this attack. The second is that sirens are sounding not just at that base, but in Bahrain and Kuwait as well. And you have the president, defense secretary, and other key members of the administration in the Situation Room.
Well, the report was that there were half a dozen missiles, and we don't know how accurate that is. But clearly, if you wanted an off-ramp, to use the old trite expression, and you were Iran, you'd fire a bunch of missiles and be done with it, and hope that that was going to be the end of it. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. One report was that they were headed towards the our air base in Qatar, where, by the way, we have 10,000 troops or thereabouts.
Forward position of U.S. Central Command, 10,000 troops.
Correct. A likely target. But if sirens are also being heard in Bahrain and Kuwait, we have naval forces stretch all across the Middle East as well. It may mean that there are other missiles, which means that Iran has decided that it's not necessarily looking for a way to get off of this, get out of this problem, but in fact are raising the stakes. The trouble for Iran is that it's kind of stuck. It's got to do something, it thinks, in order to demonstrate that it's not weak. Don't forget, it's got a domestic audience as well, not the people, but the Republican guards, who in many respects may in fact be lots less progressive even than the mullahs, on the one hand, and the rest of the world also, though it's the domestic audience that they've got to be most concerned about. And second, to make sure that the United States understands that it's capable of responding to preclude further Western attacks. But if it really ups the ante by killing American troops, by sending multiple attacks out there in multiple places that also, by the way, damage people like the Qataris who are acting as intermediaries, then in fact all bets are off. And the likelihood of an American response that the Iranians did not anticipate, something really, really big, becomes greater. Don't forget, the Iranians are looking at the United States and come to the conclusion that the guy who's got his finger on the button is unpredictable. Well, if you're looking at somebody who's an adversary who's unpredictable, what you probably don't want to do is make them angry. And it depends on how long this attack is going to be, how widespread it's going to be, and whether or not it's going to stop after this attack. But if a lot of American troops are hurt, then all bets are off.
There is an Iranian semi-official news agency, Tasnim. They are saying that Iran has launched missile operations, what is called Basharat al-Fath, against U.S. bases in Qatar and Iraq. This basically translates to glad tidings of victory. The operation code phrase is Ya Aba Abdillah, which is a reference to Imam Hussein. So when you talk about messaging and the importance of the domestic audience that the Ayatollah and the people around him are most concerned about, just the name of it will tell you something. But let's consider more specifically the dangers here of escalation, because what the message was from supporters of the president, this was going to potentially just shut it down. This is not shutting it down.
Well, they keep talking about, the administration keeps talking about this being a war against the nuclear capability of Iran. And of course, that's where the attacks were. By the way, as an aside...
Let me stop you for just a second, because Courtney Kube, who is our reporter at the Pentagon, has gotten in front of a camera now. Talk to us about what we know about these bases. And very importantly, we've heard a lot over the last 36 hours or so about the defenses that are in place. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the main bases that we're talking about here is Al Udeid. That's in Doha. It's this sprawling, enormous air base that is actually owned by the Qataris, but the U.S. military has been there with thousands of troops operating off that base, largely airmen, for years now. Now, it does have extensive air defense systems in it. That's both ground-based systems, which we've been hearing a lot about in recent days, that have the ability to shoot down not only incoming missiles, but also drones. But they also have multiple fighter squadrons there, fighter jets, that have the ability to go up in the air and shoot down incoming as well. We've seen them do that in frankly, in recent months. U.S. aircraft up shooting down incoming drones, and they can even take down certain missiles, Chris. So that is the defense that they have on the base. It is, as I said, an enormous, sprawling base right in Qatar. But there are other U.S. military installations that also are in the area that are well within the reach of Iran. One is the head of the U.S. Navy in the Middle East, known as Fifth Fleet. It's in Bahrain. There is also there are bases in Iraq as well, multiple bases there that have also come under attack in recent months from Iranian proxy groups, well within, obviously, range of Iran if they were to decide to go after one of those. Remember, Iran has actually targeted U.S. troops and the installation at al-Assad, which is in western Iraq. After the attack on Qasem Soleimani, they retaliated with a number of ballistic missile drones striking that base, causing a number of injuries among U.S. service members, primarily in traumatic brain injuries. Those are three of the main ones that we're looking at. But, Chris, there are a number of other installations there, and we cannot forget, we're not just talking about the U.S. military assets that exist on land. There are U.S. Navy ships at sea. They are also well within range. These are the sorts of assets that we're looking at right now. We're aware of the information that's coming across the semi-official Iranian news agencies. But at this point, the defense officials we're speaking to have not been able to substantiate any actual attack beginning. But a U.S. official that I spoke with did say that they were warned about the possibility of an imminent threat against a number of U.S. military bases in the region. That includes some of the ones I spoke with in Qatar, in Iraq, and in Bahrain and elsewhere. Chris?
Thank you so much, Courtney Kube. Come back to us as we get more information. But I want to bring in Brigadier General Mark Kimmitt, retired and former Assistant Secretary of State. We just got a statement from Iran's armed forces. I'm going to read you little parts of it, if I can, General. In response to what they call the blatant military aggression of the criminal regime of the United States against the peaceful nuclear facilities of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and in clear violation of international law, Iran has launched a powerful and destructive missile strike on the Al Udeid air base in Qatar. The operation is being carried out under the sacred call. The message to the White House and its allies is clear. It says, Iran will never leave any violation of its territorial integrity, sovereignty, or national security unanswered. We warn the enemies of the Islamic Republic. The era of hit and run is over. The determined will of Iran's powerful and popular armed forces means any repeated provocation will accelerate the collapse of the U.S. military structure in the region. And so what we have is missiles heading for U.S. bases in the region. Your reaction to what we're seeing right now?
Well, I'm glad we probably have some airplanes on scramble alert. Hopefully they're up in the air right now, taking on those ballistic missiles and possibly drones as well. We'll have to wait and see the numbers, the quality, the quantity, because that's going to make a difference. It'll be important to find out if this is just a performative response, which is meant to demonstrate that they are resisting but are really not serious because they don't want to draw the U.S. military into a fight, or if this is the real deal. I mean, I would also note, as Courtney said, while we have the largest air base at Al Udeid, it's also the head of Central Command Forward is located at that base as well. So they've picked these targets carefully. I would just hope we wait and see what happens. Hopefully we can make sure there are no Americans injured. I was really concerned in that message where they said we won't put up with hit and run, which is another way of saying our view that this is one and done hasn't been well received by Iran.